Welcome on in, D-backs fans, to another episode of D-backs Dispatch with your host here, Brandon, Gabe, and myself, Brett. Here to talk a little bit about some of the news that came out today and some of the quotes and all that that we got from the official press conference of Corbin Burns. Got to see him in his D-backs threads. Got to hear from Ken Kendrick, Mike Hazen, which they said his attorney a few times, which I thought was pretty funny. His attorney, Scott Boras. And then, of course, the man of the hour himself, Corbin Burns. It's not necessarily wrong, but it was one of those where I'm like, I've never heard them refer to Boras as anyone's attorney, so I thought it was funny. But like I said, welcome in. We are D-backs Dispatch. If you guys are here for the first time ever, we appreciate you. We welcome you. Do want to remind you guys that we have a Discord and Twitter as well. Both of the things are in the description below. The Discord is free. You don't got to pay $75 to get access to it. You also do get access, especially it's been popping off in the prospect section of the Discord, which we'll have a little bit more on tomorrow's show. I know, right? Back-to-back shows. What? But we'll have a little bit more info on that. But if you guys want kind of a sneak preview of what we're going to talk about, again, make sure you join the Discord, hop into some of those channels, look in there. Again, follow us on Twitter as well. Same with Blue Sky. Rate us 5 stars on Apple, Spotify. Really helps. Like, comment, and subscribe on the video too, because it really does push in the YouTube algorithm. You guys seriously don't know how much that means to us and how much it really does help. And then also, again, I know I mentioned it every time, but make sure you guys do check out azsnakepit.com for a bunch of the articles for guys like Jeff. One of the guys on there, Make a Kilo, has a lot of great insight, and then there's plenty more. Something to fit every single person's kind of thing they're looking for when it comes to D-backs content. But like I said at the beginning, we are here to talk about some of the things that we heard in today's introductory press conference where Corbin Burns officially got, introduced as a Diamondback. We got to see him in his D-backs threads. We got to hear some of his thoughts, questions from, like I said, not only Ken Kendrick and Mike Hazen, but Burns himself. I believe his opening statement that he had from Corbin Burns was saying that the family aspect of this was huge for us. And when we heard this was going to be an opportunity, we had to jump at it, and we're grateful we got it done. He then went on to talk about, his thoughts on if the D-backs being interested in him was a surprise and what made the right decision for him. And he said, when we heard that this could be an opportunity, I think we got really excited. We were fortunate that they were interested, and from talking to Scott, it sounds like it came together pretty quickly. So for us, that showed just how much they wanted us to be here and how much we wanted to be a part of the D-backs. So it's kind of a match made in heaven. My question to you, gentlemen, obviously you guys in the chat as well, I know you guys probably have some thoughts on it. What did it feel like hearing? Obviously, I know the reports came out before about him choosing to be here because of his family. He already lived here, which was another quote that we'll kind of get into on that a little bit later. But what were some of your thoughts, initial reactions to Burns' opening statement on what sounded like him being pretty excited about being a Diamondback?
Yeah, I mean, I guess at certain times you have to take these sort of things with a grain of salt because, it could be a guy you sign like Jordan Montgomery at the end of the, or right at the beginning of spring training. He'll be like, yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm like, are you? Like, was this your first choice? But it did seem in this case like Burns did want to be on the West Coast. And, seemingly from everything that we've known so far, he took a little bit of a pay cut or at least some deferrals to be able to stay here and to be with his family. Like, I mean, he probably has lived here for a long, long time. Like, just going back to the Brewers days, like their stadium is like 10 minutes down the road from me. Like I don't live that far from there. So I can imagine he probably lives anywhere near that area or anywhere else. And now, if he lives in Scottsdale, which supposedly that's where he lives, so he could probably just walk to the stadium if he really wants to. And I'm sure that's a big bonus. And I think Arizona, it has always had the potential to be a destination for a lot of these guys, like especially these guys with families, like be able to buy a house, for relatively cheaper than other places, and you can just be here for most of the year because you don't have to go anywhere for spring training. At most, you can just go visit your families in another place. So, but to hear that coming from him, he seems to be excited, and there's a lot more quotes that we have from him that where it seems like, yeah, like he seems to have really thought about it. And I'm just glad that they gave him a call because, or that they gave us a call because supposedly that's what it was, right? It was Burns. They called the D bags, let them know, like, hey, we're interested, just so you know, like, make us an offer. And I don't remember the last time I ever heard something like that ever, other than like Kevin Durant wanting to play with Devin Booker. Like, that's crazy to me. So I'm excited for him to come here and, actually contribute to the team. And I just want to say the fact that they finally got the lettering right on these damn jerseys, it made me so happy. It wasn't just like the font where it looks like somebody's like whispering or something. Like, look at that. That's beautiful. Like, I probably will buy an actual player jersey now because I was just waiting for them to fix that font because, oh my god, it was so bad. So Fanatics or whoever owns them now, Nike, good job.
Yeah, so like you said, there are some other comments, obviously from Burns that we'll touch on a little bit later about thoughts on Phoenix, the city in general. But like you said, I'm glad that he was interested enough to get Boris to kind of like get in touch with the D-backs, get that deal done. And to your last point there that you ended off with, yes, it is very nice that I don't have to worry about even on TV squinting and being like, who the is pitching, who's on second base, who is that? Because those jersey numbers were terrible. But he does look good in that D-backs. I know this is the home white and teal. I'm excited to see him in that that red and teal, and then even that black and teal. Because oh boy, I think you're right. I'm gonna have to get me a Burns player jersey. I know potentially could only be here for 2 years, but hey, you know what? If it's a good 2 years, I'll give you my money. But Brandon, same thing to you. What were some of your initial thoughts, reactions to Corbin Burns' opening statement on uh, the quote "match made in heaven" and how at least excited it seemed that he was to be an Arizona Diamondback.
So the thing that I really got from this is where he wanted to be at the start of the off season, but like nothing had really transpired. Like Mike Hazen hadn't reached out, Ken didn't reach out, which to me seems like the D-backs weren't planning on this. Like this was not on their list because they probably thought it was out of their price range, or like they're like we want to re-sign Zach Gallen. But when he reaches out, like when Scott Boras reached out to see if there was interest, we know Mike Hazen would have said absolutely. Top 5 starting pitcher wants to come here. Yeah, you definitely want to go ahead and listen to how it all sounds. So that was great. And the fact that he's been here, like he's lived in the valley since I think he said 2018. And like the main thing he said that was so important to him, like the main thing that was so important to him was just due to the fact that he has a 3-year-old. Just in a couple of years, he'll be going off to school. He doesn't have to FaceTime him in the mornings and said, have fun at school. He can see him off. He could potentially even drop him off. Like that to me was a very like he is willing to take less money. To me, it's family trumps money, which is really great to see because sometimes you see some of these deals like Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto, where they're just it just seems like money's the only thing that they care about. So it's really great to see a top tier player like Corbin Burns want to come here. So I'm very excited. Like my expectations drastically changed with this signing. Like before, I was like, okay, maybe we make the playoffs, maybe we get 80 wins. With him, I'm like, division, let's go. Like I'm like, you know what? Let's go get that division title for the first time in God, a very, very
13,
long
13 years, about to be 14. Last time was 2011. But you actually share some of the same thoughts as Corbin Burns. There's a quote that we have again that we'll kind of touch on a little bit later. But you kind of was saying some of the same, where it seems like you two had some of the same thought process on the goals. Obviously, the main goal being the World Series, but some of those other prior goals to obviously get into the postseason and whatnot. But Do want to again shout out all of you guys in the chat. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys. So Corbin Barrels, OG as well, especially along with Red Sox Nation. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Corbin Barrel saying we heard Cubbies suck and Uncle Ken wants to spend some money, baby. Yeah, there's an interesting quote that we got there that could be taken one way or the other depending on how you might view Ken Kendrick and the ownership group. But we'll kind of touch on that later. Red Sox Nation apparently thinks Brandon's a little too tired, which understandable. Our man just got off of.
I just don't make a face when I'm not talking. I just have a dead stare.
Just got done with that grind. I imagine you're still winding down from work, so you got to get back into that podcast mood, get that energy up. We got Corbin Burns, baby, come on. Oscar as well. Shout out King shit. If Gabe was a player, he would go after more money instead of his family. Which I mean, I don't know, because I haven't been a player in that situation. I can't blame them necessarily. But
yeah, I will say though, like if it was any sort of Texas or Florida team, it would be an immediate no matter how much they wanted to pay me. It would have to be stupid Juan Soto type money for me to go to Texas or Florida.
Yeah, dude, too hot. The humidity is terrible, especially even a place like St. Louis where the humidity is almost like 100 sometimes, it seems like. And then a point that one of my coworkers brought up that, kind of touching back on the Gabe's point about the jerseys is hopefully not only were the fonts fixed, maybe they have a better material this year so we don't have to see Brandon Pfaadt look like he's soaked through his shirt in the second inning. Because hey, if the players are cool and they're fine with it, it's fine. But it's one of those. It's definitely very visible. So maybe they got that fixed as well.
Yeah, I don't want to see anybody hanging dong either.
Yeah, seriously, dude. Oh my God, some of those pants were a little bit too tight. And then apparently, you got a number one fan here in the chat. Corbin Barrels is saying that he would draft you with my number 11 pick, and just because I watched Moneyball recently, which by the way, if you guys haven't watched Moneyball again,
by the way, it's not 11. It's the way
1-1. Sorry, 1-1. My bad.
Yeah, it's just the issue with that font. It doesn't translate when you pull it up on screen.
Nah, you're good. But it did make me think of the quote from Moneyball when Brad Pitt's character is talking to Jonah Hill. And he's like, be real with me. What, do you draft me 1-1? He's like, nah, you're a great player. You're over. He's like, cut the shit. Would you draft me 1-1? And he's in the first round. He's like, 7th, 8th round, wouldn't have given you a signing bonus.
No bonus,
like,
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So that kind of made me think about that. So maybe Corbin Barrels is one of the Mets GMs and all that. But kind of diving back into some of the other quotes we had here. This next one up was again from Corbin Burns. This one was on if the thought of being a D-back crossed his mind in the 2023 postseason or just even before that. And this one was one that I know we were talking about before the show that definitely kind of stuck out to us and got us a little bit juiced. But he was quoted with saying, yeah, I think the first time I realized the D-backs were going to be a really good team for a long time was in 2023. I think I came here maybe early on in the season and threw the ball well. Then they came when I was still in Milwaukee in August and they knocked me around pretty well. And I was like, whoa, that's a different baseball team than I played earlier on. And then in the postseason, knocked me around. Went on to say, I remember telling people that they're playing a different style of baseball. And I think we're starting to see that more and more around the league. But to me, the Diamondbacks were the first team to do that. And then he finished off his part of the question saying, I think we've got pieces to be a really good postseason team. And it is kind of interesting to hear. I know even after the 2023 season, the White Sox, I believe they took Joshua Barfield, one of the D-backs like scouting directors at the time, made him, I believe, their GM. So the D-backs did kind of not necessarily moneyballed it to where they changed the aspect of baseball and kind of made a bunch of other teams want to copy their method. But it did get other teams to kind of realize, like, hey, you know what? There are other ways that we can win. We can build rosters a little bit differently than maybe the normal. And then Burns also went on to say, when he was asked about what made him excited on being a Diamondback, kind of touched again on the 2023 season, saying, quote, when I realized in 23 that this team was something special, this is a team that's built to win baseball games and to win the postseason. This is a really good baseball team, young baseball team. So I think it's got many years of winning ahead of them. I want to come in and I want to win. I want to win the entire time I'm here. And this is a team that's built to do that. This is a team that's going to win a lot of baseball games for years to come. And, I fully agree with that. I know a lot of our sentiment. That's a lot of our statement where the window, it's going to be a tough division. I know even Ken had some comments on that where this division's not easy, but this team is built to at least compete with hopefully not even just the division, or at least not the division, then just the NL wildcard race in general, because, they got a stacked roster. But kind of same question to you guys. What were some of your initial thoughts to just some of Burns, comments about the what he noticed from the team early on in 2023, obviously when we faced him in the wild card, and then also his thoughts on just the team's overall like roster construction and where they're kind of standing going forward into the years to come.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, the league had been talking about extending the bases and doing all these rule changes for the last few years, and I think the D-backs and the Orioles were on the cutting edge of that, trying to get guys who are a lot more speedy, who could make good contact instead of hitting home runs. And he's played for the Orioles, so he knows what sort of team it takes to to compete in the league, especially when they're facing off against teams like the Yankees and stuff. But here at the NL is a lot harder, and he saw how good this team can be. And I think that's kind of thing with this D-backs team is I feel they're built for the playoffs, and I think for the regular season they might struggle to win a bit just because of obviously with the injuries and everything else. But I think if this team would have made it to the playoffs last year, they would have won the World Series. And I know it can be a little bit of a hot take, especially with the team that the Dodgers had, but I do think they would have had a better shot against the Dodgers than any of the other teams that actually made it to the playoffs. It just unfortunately didn't make it there. Um, but yeah, I think he noticed what this team was building to, and again, we're still in the first couple of years of this window opening, so we want to keep the window open. We don't want this window to close as soon as it opens, and because we've seen this happen before, like again with the Suns, like it opened, we're like, oh wow, with this young core, we're going to compete for quite a few years, and then, we're 3 years in, and this team is just a dumpster fire, and we don't want this to happen with the D-backs. Like having Burns here for a while, and with Fott, Nelson, we still have a few of the young guys able to come up, but I think he saw something in the D-backs that he couldn't see in the Orioles, which was the want and need to spend money. And the Orioles, as of right now, have done literally nothing to improve their squad. They have one of the best teams in the league. They can go out and win 100 games in the next, 6, 7, 8 years, but with no pitching. I mean, they're relying on John Means, who has had Tommy John surgery and has had a whole bunch of different things. Like
Charlie
they have
Morton.
Charlie Morton, who's like 47. Like there's too many old guys over there and guys with injury histories. And I know there's some little bit of pushback from some people saying that Corbin Burns, like, he can have history with injuries and sort of, but not really. In the last few years, he has been able to go in deeper into games. And I think that was always a knock against him early on, which is the Brewers had him 5 innings, you're out, no matter how many pitches he had. But I think that I mentioned it once as well about like if you had any sort of knock on Burns, it's just that his strikeout rate has gone down. But during that time, his strikeout rate has gone down, but he's also been pitching more to contact, and his innings have gone up as well. So it seems to be a little bit of a trade off, and the D-backs have the best defense in the league, so should be able to adjust to that. And again, like we talked about, like Gabby Moreno, just the fact that he is probably the best defensive catcher in the league, having him back there, being able to throw out guys, because I believe Corbin Burns had something like 30 something stolen bases on him by himself or something crazy like that. So if Gabby's able to cut that by half, he had a great ERA last year, it can keep going down. Like there's certainly no limit to what Corbin Burns can be with this team. And I think, he saw what we're building. And again, hopefully this is just the start of the window and not the end of it.
Yeah, say what a difference almost a decade can make when it comes to a big free agent pitcher sign. Because when Zach Greinke was signed here, obviously the D-backs weren't coming off of too much success. They weren't only a year or so removed from a World Series appearance, to where one of the only things that Greinke would say is the sunsets are nice. Which again, hey, goated conference, goated response. Love the guy, but it was nice to kind of hear some of the things that Burns said about like the way this team's built. Especially like how he kind of like respected and saw even in just the 2023 season alone, like from the beginning of the year to even in August, and then obviously come October when they played, just like how different of a team they were and how they played baseball, being kind of like an inspiring thing where it's like, hey, you want to be a part of that as a guy. But Brandon, kind of same thing to you. What were some of the things that either stuck out to you from Burns that you liked, that you wanted to kind of like dig deeper into, or what were just some of your initial like thoughts and reactions to what he had to say about the D-backs and how they're kind of built for years to come?
I think the thing that stood out to me most is the fact that he noticed that difference in 2023 from his first start when he pitched here in Arizona to later in the season when he faced them I think it was August, and he's like, "This team is completely different. Like this is not the same team that I faced earlier in the year." And then they knocked him out in the postseason, and it's not like that game one of that wild card series in 23. It's not like it was a bad outing. Like he went 4 innings, 5 hits, 4 earned, but his offense, like outside, I think like that 1 inning, Zach Gallen shut down that offense. Like, and I know a lot of people will bring up he hasn't pitched well in his postseason starts. The one game he pitched last year is not his fault. He goes 8 innings, 5 hits, gives up 1 earned run. It's not his fault that I think it was Zach Lugo went in game one for the Royals and basically matched him pitch for pitch. Like that is not on him. I don't know what it is with Baltimore. The last 2 postseasons, offense has not shown up. That is not on the pitching. So I'm very excited for Corbin Burns because I think Gabby could take him to the next level. Because I call it homerism, call it bias, but I truly think Gabby is a top 5 catcher in Major League Baseball. Yes, his bat may not be on the level of an Adley Rutschman, Will Smith, but that defense is like that's going to make a difference for Corbin Burns. Maybe he doesn't hold runners on very well. And we all know Gabby is a gunslinger throwing guys out on the bases. So I think that's going to, and like there could be a tell that Corbin Burns has that guys pick up on, and that's why he gets run on so much. So that'll be something really, really great to see. I really do like how, unlike in 2017, where we made the playoffs and we lost to the Dodgers, they kind of immediately shut the door on that postseason run. Like this time, they are making sure it's open, it stays open, adding to it so it continues to stay open. This Corbin Burns signing is like, we still think we got plenty of talent. We think this window is still there. I'm not sure when in the press conference or who said it. Like they basically said, like when you have 2, and I think it was Boris, when you have 2 number 1 aces in the postseason, it makes a huge difference. Now he didn't compare it to Randy and Kurt, but that's where my head went when he said that. Like when you have 2 aces that you can throw out in have them go in a 7-game series, 4 games, good luck. Like you're going to have to take at least 2 of those to have a chance. And that could be Corbin Burns and Zach Gallen. I'm not sure if you got the quote in here about how when he was with the Brewers, they like to push themselves as a pitching staff and only adding.
I got that in there.
Okay. All right. So maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I really like that quote.
Yeah, so that's definitely one of those that kind of stood out to me. And like I said, we're not too far off of it, so we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But yeah, I'd say there's a lot of encouraging things from Corbin Burns. A lot of the things that he said were very exciting. I like the mindset that he kind of brings to this team. And then especially one of the things that he didn't say that Corbin Barrels kind of brings up here in the YouTube chat, saying Burns never mentioned Montgomery, mentioned Zach Merrill and the younger guys, and even Eduardo Rodriguez that he can help teach, which I think even he knows, like maybe it's not set in stone, but we know the Jordan Montgomery is probably going to be traded. So he's probably not trying to, count his chickens before they hatch. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to mention the guys that I know are going to be here.
Or he doesn't feel like he can teach Jordan. Maybe he's looking to learn from Jordan.
That could be too. One of the other comments in the sorry, Gabe.
I just wanted to bring up real quick when we're talking about Adley and Gabby, at least in terms of defense. Like if you look up their their Baseball Savant page, there is a pretty clear difference between Gabby and Adley. Adley, in terms of his pop time, he's the 54th percentile. Gabby's in the 90th percentile. So he is at least a split second faster than Adley, and that makes all the difference between a guy getting caught and not getting caught. Gabby, 74th percentile in framing. Adley, 23. So he has -3 outs or whatever frames, whatever they call it. Then caught stealing above average. Gabby is at a 79 percentile. Adley is at 66. And the only real difference is just the blocks. So Gabby's not a great blocker, but Adley is, just because he has a bigger frame as well. But you're talking about a difference between, guys getting caught and not getting caught. And Gabby is able to frame a lot better than Adley. So I know Adley's supposed to be this future, leader of the staff, and everyone has been talking about him, as great as he's been. It seems, at least defensively, Gabby is a lot better. And I think, other than the power, they can be neck and neck in terms of their offensive production. Like, if you look at their average, it's not that far off. I mean, they're both been playing the same amount of time. Adley has a 772 OPS for his career. Gabby has 740. So when you combine that with Gabby's defense, like, he is superior. And I think, guys do notice that. And I think Burns noticed that, like, hey, if he comes here, so even if he wants to opt out, like, he could win a couple Cy Youngs here and then opt out and get a bigger contract. But, hopefully he stays here. But he could be seeing those numbers that Gabby has and just says, you have a couple of bonuses coming if you win Cy Young and everything. So, Gabby could be a key.
Yeah, so you kind of highlight, or at least touch on one of the things that Charles Elliott in our comment section was bringing up, saying that Gabby's bat is not his value. His game control and steal protection is where he makes his money. And that's a great point. Like, his bat is still there, which I believe even Kyle responded to, saying Gabby's bat is still due, I think, a lot of value. A lot of potential at the plate. He could be one of the best balance catchers out there, catcher with dazzling defense and a great offense. And that's true. We kind of did see it a little bit when he returned from his, I believe, groin injury that he suffered, in Cleveland, when he finally came back from that. Even before that, like, when he's on, he is a really good hitter. We saw that was one of the reasons why we traded for him from the Blue Jays. He does have the potential there in the bat. It's just we haven't seen him fully be able to, put both of them together. The glove is always there. The glove has never left him. The plate metrics are always going to be there. It's just if he can consistently have that bat there, then I think we can definitely talk about him being up there. I know he was ranked in like the MLB Shredder, like top 10 catchers at number 7, which definitely good spot, maybe a little bit lower than probably some of us, would expect want. But I think if he can have a solid year, stay healthy, I think we can definitely see his bat along with his glove kind of push him into that top 5, if not top 3 category. But some of the other comments that I wanted to touch on, obviously, in the chat, again, showing love to all you guys in here, because again, we appreciate all you. Corbin Barrels, oh, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Red Sox Nation bringing up, saying that Corbin and I will be at the February 23rd spring training game if anybody else is going, which, heck yeah, if anybody else is here, anybody else, Dispatch fans, make sure you guys, try to plan a little meetup on the side. But we are actually kind of talking a little bit about and still trying to plan a sort of a takeover. It's a little bit harder in spring training, maybe do something kind of like where we all meet up on the lawn. So obviously I know you guys are out of state, so we'll try to plan something around with you guys. And try to do a little like meet and greet, hang out, talk some ball while we watch some spring training games, because honestly that's the best time of the year to talk ball, because after the 3rd or 4th inning, it really just goes into some prospect watch where you see guys that you don't normally get to see. And it can be spring training, obviously with the pitch clock and all that, the games go by fast, but those spring training games are still a little bit slow. Don't get me wrong. Gabe even mentioned in the YouTube responding, saying he's never been to the Mariners spring training stadium, and that could be fun. And I believe that's the Peoria one that they share with the Padres. It's a really good stadium. So honestly, that's a pretty solid one. Some of the other comments, obviously, I think Kyle said the lights were too bright for the young guys in Baltimore. Our young guys were simply built different. And, that's a good point. Kind of going back to the fact that maybe Burns going from Baltimore to a place like here, Gabby can cut down on some of those, stolen base numbers, can kind of keep Burns a little bit more in check. Better pop time. Maybe there is something that, like to Brandon's point, maybe there's something that the D-backs coaching staff can kind of notice in his delivery. Maybe there's something that's a tell that lets runners know when he's going to be going to the plate, so they get those better jumps on him. But only time will tell. Kind of diving back into some of the quotes that we had here. The next one was from the D-backs GM, Mike Hazen, I believe. Let me make sure I have it. Yeah. So there's a question that Mike Hazen was asked on the 2025 starting rotation. Kind of when we talked about, Montgomery not being here. He was asked the plan of the 2025 rotation and all that. And, Mike Hazen's not going to give away any details. He's going to kind of try to keep things on topic. So his response was, we still have a long way to go in the offseason. We have a number of starting pitchers on our team, and Corbin is going to be in the rotation, and that's really all that matters right now. We'll deal with the rest when we get there. So, I mean, obviously it's still sounds like they're working out a deal. I know even today we were talking about a report that the Nationals were apparently interested in Jordan Montgomery. I know they're a young team, so
Jonathan
maybe they
Cruz, let's go.
heck yeah, put down the crack pipe, sir. I'm just kidding. So, I mean, even if we don't get too much of a return, like I know it was a joke, but hey, bring back the Stone man, Garrett. Don't really have much room for him, but I always loved Stone Garrett. But hey, you know what? If there's a suitor out there for Montgomery, I'd be okay with it. But then one of the other quotes we had was kind of Burns's thoughts. I know Gabe mentioned earlier and Brandon as well about him being here since 2018 and living here when he was still a Milwaukee Brewer. Like obviously, there's 15 teams that play their spring trainings here, so it's not too surprising to see some guys live here. It's easier in spring training, less of a commute and all that. But this is what he had to say on moving to the Valley in 2018 and living here ever since. He was quoted on saying, "I've been out here, gosh, going on 6 to 7 years now for us, or 6 to 7 years now. So for us, this just made the most sense. Obviously, being with the Milwaukee at the time of spring training was out here. We didn't want to have to keep moving around multiple times a year. So we settled on coming out here, and we've loved it ever since." Went on to say, "We love being out here. We love all parts of the city. So we're glad to continue to be a part of this community and continue to give back." And he even did mention that was something that him and Ken kind of talked about. Obviously, the D-backs give back. We made a joke about like that was basically their pitching staff last year, where the D-backs like to give back those runs, give back those leads. But that is generally one of the things that the D-backs organization is so good about is the community involvement, the community, having like even when Goldschmidt was here, he was a big face of it, a big part of it, where he likes to go out there, be involved in the community, and do whatever they can. So it's nice to see that, Burns is kind of like picking up and, kind of continuing what, the status quo that we kind of have here with like the Diamondbacks players and all that. So, question to you guys, obviously, what your, thoughts on Mike Hazen kind of keeping it cut and dry with, what the plans are for the rotation. Obviously, to no one's surprise, he said Corbin Burns is going to be in it. And then also, some of his thoughts on just like the city of Phoenix. He did also mention, I believe that they moved around a couple different places. Like Gabe said, I think they, in the press conference, they said that he tried to move out to closer to Maryvale, which Scottsdale's got to probably be a pretty big upgrade from Maryville, let me tell you. But what are some of your thoughts on, Mike Hazen's quotes and then Burns's quotes on the, the city and the state in general?
Yeah, I think this is just kind of standard, I guess, lawyer talk on part of Mike Hazen. Like, he knows he can't really give out any details because he's going to show his hand if he says any part of this rotation is set in stone. Because maybe there are teams that are calling on Zach Gallen, and if they're willing to really overpay for him, maybe they would listen to that. Same with Montgomery and Fott, and there's a whole bunch of other guys. Like you said, we have about 7 starting pitchers. Not all of them can be out there at the same time, although we would rather have more pitchers than less. But yeah, I think as of right now, sorry, Corbin is the number one pitcher on this team only because he is here for sure. Everyone else, they could be traded. Maybe Erod is the only one who probably wouldn't be traded. But I think that's mainly why he said it. And I think he also wants to just focus on Corbin Burns rather than talk about everyone else. And I know there's some bad blood between Scott Boras and Jordan Montgomery because he did fire his ass. So you never know. You never know. That's why he didn't mention him in the press conference. And on Burns living here, I mean, if he moved to Scottsdale from Scaryville, I think that's a big difference. Like,
did you just say Scaryville?
Yeah. That's a pretty big.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty big difference to move from there. I mean, there's a lot of great places here in Phoenix, and even the outskirts of Phoenix. It's honestly a really nice place to live, other than this awful summers. But overall, there's a lot of really nice houses and a lot of nice neighborhoods.
Yeah, I think that's something that obviously, I joked about even our Discord and all that even I know it's not necessarily Phoenix, but Tucson, I'll make my jokes about it being the dirty tea and all that, but there's genuinely a lot of great places to live in Arizona. I know some of them are a little bit farther. Even like Flagstaff is one of my favorite places living out there for college. Just Arizona's just in general a great place. I know Phoenix, like you said, the summers are borderline unbearable at times, but thankfully that's why they play in a dome. And if the reports and what we saw in our Discord, I think that somebody showed where they're hiring a full-time HVAC tech, maybe it's a good sign we're finally going to have less than 80% humidity in the stadium, so we don't have to worry about that as much. But Brandon, kind of same thing to you. What were some of your, initial thoughts, obviously, on, Hazen's comments about the rotation that probably didn't surprise anybody, and then Burns, kind of giving some praise to the city and along with the team's community outreach.
I think it's funny that certain media members think they're slick when asking questions to get some of these GMs, managers to trip up. And Mike Hazen saw that question coming a mile. He was like, I ain't telling you anything. I am keeping this close to the chest because I'm working. Like, I think Mike Hazen has truly proved he can make any deal happen. Like, I mean, taking what you want with Jordan Montgomery, he was very up and down last year. No one thought he was coming here, and then we got him. Same thing with we weren't even in the discussion for Corbin Burns, and he makes this happen. Now, I don't know if he's the one that initiated the communication, or if it was Burns that told Boris, can you reach out to Arizona, see if they're interested? And I think that's kind of, and from what they were saying, like once that communication was had, this deal went together very quickly. So it sounds like more like they didn't think they had a shot, and then they hear he's interested. They're like, okay, we got to see what we can do. So yeah, I was hoping Mike might say something, but he's very good at talking to the media. Like he's probably one of the better GMs of as Kyle's kind of saying here. Yeah, he's just good at not like he's a really good poker face. Like he does not reveal anything. And just hearing the way Corbin Burns talked about the Valley, like you can just tell he knows how important this team is to the Valley. And now he's like, all right, I'm going to do everything in my power. Because I really like the quote of, I think we have it here. This is a team that's going to win a lot of baseball games for years to come. And I'm like, well, you're going to be a huge contributor to that. So, I think he understands that. And I think he's probably ready to get to work right now. So, welcome to the Arizona Diamondbacks, Corbin.
Yes, I do like just how excited he is. I know like it kind of echoes some of the fans' excitement having that, one-of-one ace that he kind of had some comments in himself about it, and like what it what he feels like about being a one-on-one ace, which I think, kind of add to it more. I really like his mindset in a lot of these answers. I know, even like Gabe said, sometimes with these press conferences, you got to take some things with a grain of salt. So sometimes they're going to be, a little media trained. They're going to, maybe play up the media, try to, say all the nice things. But I really do like the mindset that Burns kind of has, coming into this. And I think that he'll be a great addition. I think he'll fit in to this clubhouse well. And it is nice, like I said earlier, I think the players kind of buying into that community outreach, that, giving back to the community. I think it's a big part, and it's really nice to see that players, and especially like even Ken Kendrick and all that, make that a very like important part of, being a Dimeback. Like that is what it means to be a Dimeback, like on the field, obviously, but off the field, there's, kind of more that comes to it. But speaking of Ken Kendrick, we actually have two quotes here. I'll start the first one. First one's a little bit longer. I'll do the first one, kind of send it to you guys and get your thoughts. But Ken Kendrick was asked on what the signing of Burns means to the fans, and that, what it means like that they like spent the money this way. So Ken was quoted saying, "Well, I hope it sends a message that we're in it to win it. And when you bring a talent like Corbin to the table, it underscores that desire on the part of our leadership. We're in a very competitive division. I think all would agree. But I think our fans need to understand that we're very committed to being very successful. We've had some recent success. I think we've had the potential to be a championship team. And I think every fan in every city, and this one in particular, covets that possibility, wishes for that, hopes for that. And I think our job is try to do everything we can to put the best team on the field that is possible that we can afford. We are stretching the budget. We have done that, and it won't be the last time we ever do it. But my view in investing money so is to invest when there's an opportunity to get a return, and we're making a significant investment in a great young player. I'm hoping for our fans, and for me personally, I'm kind of aging out of this. I would kind of like, I'd kind of like to have some additional successes before I go off into the sunset. So we'll see how it works out. So there's a few things in there that to me kind of stood out. Obviously, I know we're not the only ones. We've been vocal about how Ken kind of spends his money and all that. And yes, there are times where maybe he sounds a little bit too businessy out of it. It does seem like at heart he is a baseball fan. At heart he does want to see this team win, and he wants to like Brandon even said earlier, they did in 2017. They kind of like shut the window on themselves and didn't even want to build around that team going into 2018. Some of that could have still been them finally getting out of the deferments that the 01 championship team had on schedule. So maybe that was the excuse and the reasoning. But either way, it is nice to see now them kind of, keep this kind of trend going and like actually like building into the team. So my kind of thoughts or question to you guys were like some of your thoughts, initial reactions, and just what you thought about Ken's comments about how this money is going to be invested in the team.
So I do like hearing that part of the quote where it says that we have done, and it won't be the last time we ever do it. In terms when he's talking about stretching the budget, that's what I want to hear from Kendrick, and not just Kendrick, from any sort of ownership group that takes over. Like they have to be willing to spend because in this league, especially in this division, you have the Giants, the Padres, and the Dodgers are all always willing to spend money, especially the Dodgers. But you have to be smart about how you spend it as well. But if they feel they can get a guy like a Corbin Burns, who's going to be able to elevate this team and help them win a championship, I think they should do it. And we've seen even from this year, we saw record attendance. They made a ton of money this year as well. So it's like it's not like whatever money they're spending on the on the on the budget, I guess, for this team. They're making it back, and they're probably making back even more so now with the attendance records and everything else. And maybe there's a TV deal coming soon as well. We've seen it with the Dodgers. I mean, they've made a ton of money just from the Otani deal. Like in this last year, I mean, I believe they made something like $150 million just off of endorsements after the Otani deal. And I know Otani's deal is worth $700 million, but to be able to get $150 million of cash as soon as he signs is ridiculous. And I think the D-backs can do the same thing. Obviously, nowhere near Otani money, but if the team just starts winning more and more, getting more into the playoffs, actually being able to win a championship, then there's going to be more sponsors, and there's going to be people willing to pay more for these sponsorships. So these teams aren't going to be losing money. They're not going to be complaining about not having the money to spend anymore. And I think Kendrick, that last goal was a little rough, I guess, saying, he wants to, you know, ride off into the sunset and stuff like that. But I mean, he knows he's almost 80, so he knows, there's a time limit to life, and hopefully he actually wants to win and before that, and because it'd be great for all of us. And I'm sorry about my dog. I don't know what she's screaming at.
She's excited about the Corbin Burns deal. Don't worry. She's just like us. She's like, Corbin Burns, let's go. But yeah, say the budget comment about they're going to continue to like this. Is not the first or last time that they're going to stretch the budget. It is a little bit reassuring that obviously he does have some comments that will kind of bring up that as long as the team's winning, as long as the team's in position to stay competitive, they're going to put the money back into the team, keep that on the field product solid, excuse me, and hope to keep D-backs fans churning into Chase Field, getting those churro dogs, getting those jerseys, putting their money back in the team to kind of help them. But Brandon, kind of same to you. What stood out to you on Ken's comments about the payroll and everything he saw, even maybe like Gabe said, his comment about riding off into the sunset soon. What kind of stood out to you about what he said about this team?
The fact that he knows what this fan base, like how they view him as someone that's very cheap, that only like he loves his baseball cards. That's the only money he wants to spend. Like this quote to me was like, "I hear you. Y'all need to shut up." Like it's like I'm doing this the way that I want to do this. Like that's kind of how I viewed it. It's like I am spending money. And Kyle's comment is like so true. So you're telling me the key to a financial successful baseball team is to have you got to spend money to make like if you spend money, put a good product on the field, you will get people to show up. So then you'll have that money from concessions, apparel, the team shop, and then you can make that money back. Like it's just weird how some owners just are not like they just don't see it. Like some of them are just so like I get it. It's a lot of money to invest that could or could not work out. But I think what Ken's finally starting to see is like, oh, I invest in this team, I give us a good product, people are going to show up. And then we make the postseason, and that is additional money that you are not set to make.
It's like a player contract bonus, like, Verlander's, 100,000 extra if you win like Cy Young or whatever. It's like the team's bonus where, hey, you make the playoffs, you get that incentive.
Yeah. So, and I think he's like, oh, yeah, I need to. And like, it definitely sounds like there's like he's willing to spend even more this offseason. Alex Bregman, they've already worked with Scott Boras once this offseason. Why not do it again with Bregman?
And he's another guy who does live here. I don't think he has a family and twins that were just recently born, but hey, you know what? We've been crazier. Maybe not Dylan Cruz here from Montgomery crazy, but we've seen crazy things happen. So,
although with Bregman, I did have to sign him soon because with pitchers and catchers reporting like in 3 weeks from now, like if he doesn't sign soon, he's gonna really, really struggle. And I think Brandon, we talked about it too. Like by June, he's gonna finally have to be able to come around because
if he doesn't sign, I say in the next week to 10 days, he is not going to be batting well till June 1st because he's gonna be like so out of sync because he doesn't know where he's going.
And I think there's that report that he rejected almost 160 million from the Astros, even with the Cubs. Like at this point, I'm like, damn, like, is he gonna get just a 1-year show me deal from a team or a 2-year thing? Because if he does, so
Cubs apparently,
I think Boras is gonna get fired too.
He's gonna get fired again. I think Cubs said that they want to do a more short-term deal, so maybe he does a 2-year deal, and just he's gonna have to prove it again because I think he's 30, so he's a little bit on the older side. Like apparently he wants either 200 million or 6 years, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if you're worth that.
Yeah,
and he'll always have the allegations going with him.
I will say, like, when we're talking about teams, not making as much money, every single one of these teams turns a huge profit at the end of the year. Obviously, some make more than others, but this whole thing about these teams just not wanting to spend because, like, we don't have the money. Like, they all have the money. They all turn profits because if they didn't, then they would sell the team immediately. But they make a good profit every single year just from TV deals, from revenue sharing, and everything else. So, it is BS that teams and these owners say, and I think it's the same thing that happens when like a private equity fund buys some sort of franchise where they just strip it for parts and then just sell it to the highest bidder.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of those where I believe even Kyle brings up in the chat saying that some owners are content with just the TV revenue as profit. And that's very true, especially, imagine, I know the Dodgers aren't one of them, but if you had a deal like the Dodgers, you wouldn't care about what money you put in the deal because you're printing money at that point. But kind of going back into, obviously the man of the hour and some of the quotes that we got from Corbin Burns over this one, because there was a few questions, obviously another one to Ken Kendrick about how the deal came together. And one of the comments that he said was like a stealth transaction, which I kind of liked, to Gabe and your guys' point that you're talking about where the D-backs weren't really like, none of us expected him to be here and all that. Another one, they asked Scott Boras about the addition to Burns and the staff, where he's talking about, having like 2 1-1s in a pitcher's like Zach and Burns can really go a long way for teams with playoff aspirations. And then also mentioned something about how teams around the league, and he's hearing from other people how the D-backs are themselves, a problem. Like they're going to have to be a team to worry about for any team in the National League that has playoff aspirations. But when they kind of went back to Burns, they asked him how he's looking forward to working with this team in this current rotation. And Corbin Burns was quoted saying, "You get the most out of everyone on your team when you can challenge each other. And for what we did in Milwaukee, we tried to one-up each other." This is the one that kind of Gabe brought. I think Brandon brought up earlier that he liked. Burns went on to say, "Whoever it is, you create that internal competition of constantly wanting to one-up each other. When you do that, and all of a sudden you look up and you're in August and you've got a lead in the National League West, and you're sitting there and going, 'Hey, we blinked and we're in first place.' Manifesting, baby, manifest that."
I love that. I
He then
love
went on to
that.
say, creating that internal competition, not only in the pitching group, but in the position player group, just constantly pushing one another, and it gets the most out of every player, and it gives you the best chance to win a lot of baseball games. And obviously, bonding and creating that brotherhood is huge. Went on to say, personally, I'm still learning in this game. I still have a lot to learn as a pitcher, and I'm excited to get into this group of guys that are some young guys, but also some veteran guys that I can pull some tips from and continue to improve my game as well. So kind of like even, we mentioned earlier, maybe he didn't mention Montgomery because there's something that he can learn from Montgomery, or it's just because he's not going to be here. But it is nice to see, like I said, the kind of mindset and how he's kind of viewing this team and just the game of baseball as a whole. So, Gabe, start with you again. What were some of your like thoughts on this quote specifically from Burns on the one upping each other in the rotation and having that like internal competition to like, hey, you all have the same goal. We're all trying to fight here for a World Series. Like, let's be better every day. Let's always improve.
I mean, we saw this happen early last season with uh Gallon and Fott. Like Fott would go 7 innings, strike out 7 guys. Then Gallon would come out, go 7 1/3, strike out 8 guys. So it seemed that there's clearly some sort of internal competition between these guys, and they're all gamers. They're all work very hard. So I think being able to add Corbin Burns there too, like all these guys are just going to be like, all right, so you went out, went 7 shutout. I'm going 8 shutout. And I
Yeah.
think it's going to be really good, especially for the younger guys to be able to, have that confidence and have that sort of swagger about them to be able to, come out and, even bragging rights against Corbin Burns and Zach Gallen, these guys who are aces and top 10 in the league. Like if Brandon Fott shoves one week and they, as great as they are, like let's say these guys go 6 innings, 2 runs, and Fott comes out 7 innings, 1 run, 10 strikeouts. He got bragging rights for the rest of the week, and maybe there might be some side bets going on, and I think it's going to really, really elevate this team just to have the extra competition there. And I mean, if they all see the contract that he got, then why not try to pitch as good, if not better, than Corbin Burns if they can get the same $200 million contract?
That's a great point. That could be like a little side incentive, and to your point, it's almost like like if they are having some like in clubhouse bets with each other to see who can be better. It's like the Saints bounty gate, but they're not trying to hurt each other. But Brandon, kind of same thing to you. What were some of your thoughts and reactions on Corbin Burns, mindset and some of the things that he's looking forward to in joining this team in this rotation?
just just the fact that it sounds like he's ready to get to work. He's ready to really get to learn, get to know not just his teammates with the pitching staff, but like the entire team. Like I love the part that Zach Gallen was more excited that Burns was coming here than he was in the World Series. Like to me, I'm like, I wonder if they have some sort of wager at whoever has the better season or whoever wins Cy Young. Like there's something like there's some sort of because from what Burns also said is Gallon's really the only one from this team that he knew beforehand, which makes me think like there's some sort of fraternity of like the top pitchers in baseball. They probably got to know each other. What was that? The 23 also game in Seattle. So it's probably where he ended up meeting him. So
Boris also does have his own facility where I wouldn't be surprised if these guys do meet up for some bullpens and all that.
Yeah, and Oscar brings up a solid point. Like when you yes, I know it says 12, but it's having a 1-2 punch is great because it stops those long losing streaks. If you just have one of those guys pitch well, like it really avoids those like 10 and 15 months. Like it really makes it like 500 every month. And then, like you said, next thing you know, it's August and you're in first place. Like that part of that quote was like, okay, you're bold, sir. That is a very, very bold take based on who's in that division. Like, I get you are used to that with the Brewers because the competition in the NL Central was not very like you could be like 4 or 5 games over 500 and you'd be in 6 games ahead in first place. I don't think that's what it's going to be, but I like the confidence because you need that with your. I may have changed my stance on this. I think he's the ace. I really thought this was Zach Gallen's team, but it definitely sounds like it's Corbin Burns, and I wonder if it's just due to the fact that it's a guarantee that he's here next year. Gallen, it is not a guarantee that he is on this staff next year. I hope he is, because due to both of their ages, if they have both of them locked up for like 6 years, this team can go on a serious run by just dominating with their starting pitching.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be the same kind of domination we saw with the 20 I think it was a 2015 Kershaw and Greinke, where it was, if like we said in one of the previous podcasts, where you're not winning one of those games, you're not scoring. Like those are 2 back-to-back losses on the schedule if you go up into them. And if we can get even something close to resembling that, to Brandon's point, it could be a nice formidable rotation. It could be a nice thing to, kind of back in the day when we had those like Patrick Corbin versus Clayton Kershaw watches, even Ian Kennedy in his 2011 season. Like, when you have an ace going up against an ace, it's must-see TV. It's something that you want to tune into. It's something that, even if you're not a fan of this team, it's something that gets the national fans that be like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm going to check out this, D-backs Dodgers game. I'm going to check out this D-backs versus Braves game to see like a Corbin Burns versus Chris Sale. Like it keeps, to steal a quote from Will Ferrell, it gets the people going. And that's what it does. That's what having a guy like this does. But to, kind of like you brought it up with him being the number one guy in this rotation, there's actually a question that he was asked about, being I think it was a quote, bona fide starting pitcher or a bona fide number one in the starting rotation. And he was, which I really like this quote too, especially the mindset, considering some of the health and stuff we have for the guys in the rotation, like Merrill Kelly. He was quoted saying, "I personally still don't view myself as that. For me, I'm a guy, part of 13 pitchers on the staff trying to win baseball games. I'll take the brunt of the number one and go out and face the best guys in the game. But for me, I'm going to go out there and do what I can to be a part of the group and win baseball games. That's what I've done every year, and that's what I'm going to continue to do." Went on to say, "For me, I'm going out there just to do what I can to win baseball games and get to the postseason. For me, postseason baseball is kind of what I know and what I want to be a part of every year." He did finish that off saying that he's been a part of the postseason in 6 of his 7 years. So I believe it was one of the YouTube chats brought up earlier, where this is, he's here because he has that, kind of mindset. Like he knows what it's like to get into the postseason. And we saw the D-backs fall flat, run out of gas in 2023. Just, I know you can't go back in time and change, but imagine if we had a guy like him that was used to it for that season or even last year. I think it's a huge change in not only the clubhouse mentality, but just, even going back to what we just previously talked about, the other quote of one-upping each other, because their main goal is obviously to get to the World Series and, win that championship, bring that championship back to the Valley for the first time since 2001. So, Gabe, what were some of your, thoughts, things that stood out to you on Burns, kind of not like obviously turning down the fact that he's a number one, but, the way he kind of views that number one role?
Yeah, I just think he's, again, like I said, he's a competitor, and I think this team is full of these type of guys who aren't so much into this whole, well, I'm the number one. I think all these guys are in the mindset of go out, do your best, try to win this game for your team. And I think that's something, a lot of people have talked about, firing Torre, and Torre's not a great manager, but I think that's something that he instills in a lot of these guys, which is a team mentality. Like, all these guys come out and they're competing for the team and to win games. They're not playing for themselves, which is something, at times we've seen a lot of other teams in this league do that, where these guys kind of just come out and try to stat pad themselves and get a big contract. And this isn't really a team of guys who do that. Like, they all want to win. They all want to win a championship. And for a guy like Corbin Burns, being in the playoffs for a large majority of his career and not really getting too far, like, I'm sure he's tired of losing and know he wants to win, and everyone else too. It's like, especially our pitching staff, a lot of these guys are older and they probably all want to win either their first or their second World Series. And especially if we're able to get guys like Cattell back into playoffs, Corbin back into playoffs, Gino, I can just imagine the type of damage these guys are going to do as well. And I'm excited to see it. I'm just like, please hurry up, season, just start already. Like, somebody press go.
Right?
Yes, I think we're less than we're about a month away, less than 30 days, I think 27 almost exactly, to pitchers and catchers reporting. I think the D-backs are having
February
their pitchers
12th.
and catchers February 12th, and I think full squads report on the 17th, if I'm not mistaken. So we are, the time's ticking down, like we talked about earlier. Even guys like Alex Bregman and all that, like, I know even if they do get signed in the next week or so, they'll be fine. But hey, you know what? There's a lot of stress that comes with moving to a new team and finding a place to live in such a short time, to where, spring's just around the corner, and by the time we know it, we're gonna be here. We're gonna be, like I said, eating some hot dogs, sitting on the lawn, watching these starters being taken out after the third innings, and we get to see guys that we might not be too familiar with, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because hey, it's always exciting to see what the farm has in store and what we can look forward to. But Brandon, kind of same question to you. What stood out to you on Burns' comments about how he views himself as a number one guy in the rotation?
Just it's an interesting balance. Like, he's confident in his ability, but it's not like a ego thing where, like, he's like, yes, I have to be the number one. Like, he knows that he knows he has to earn it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Torrey has not made that choice. Like, it will depend on how spring training goes between him and Gallen. Like, whoever has the better spring. It also could depend on when their final start of spring is, how close to opening day that it is. Like, I just think that he wants to win. He wants to win for his hometown team. So I'm very, very excited about that. And I really want to see what sort of impact he has on the other guys, like Ryan Nelson and Brandon Pfaadt. I think those are the two that I'm most intrigued to see. How do they progress, not just from Corbin Burns, but our new pitching staff, like our pitching coaches.
Yeah, one of the things that like I'm intrigued about, like, to your point about even something that maybe he could teach Ryan Nelson, going back to him, I believe you mentioned earlier him knowing Zach Gallen the most. Zach Gallen's cutter wasn't as effective in 2024 as it was in 2023, I believe. I think that was, kind of a talking point. That's something that a lot of people brought up, where he didn't throw it as much and just didn't have the same movement. Corbin Burns is known for having a really effective cutter and a really, really good sinker. So I'm curious to see if maybe it's something that, obviously, the pitching coach and the pitching staff, that's something that they'll probably work with Zach on. But I'm interested to see if, maybe halfway through the season or just in general, we see a comment at some point where Zach kind of talks about, he talked with Corbin on maybe it's a certain grip, a certain way he, like, maybe puts more pressure on like his middle finger when he's letting go, maybe less pressure. One of those things, because it's insane with pitching how the slightest of tweak, even in like arm angle, little things like that, can be the difference on your cutter being, a Zach Godley meatball and a 2023 Zach Gallen, ace type pitch. So to me, that's one of those where I'm interested in seeing. And also, I do agree.
His
It
cutter,
is
like, the amount of improvement Burns made when he basically said, four seam, I don't need it. And he just started throwing his cutter as his primary pitch.
dude,
Like,
it's kind of gross.
he has been like,
It's a power cutter. Like, I know Grank is a little bit different just because his velocity ticked down, but he had a power changeup as well. He was able to throw that changeup for 92, 93, and his fastball, he could top it up at 91, 92. So it looked the same coming out of his hand, and both Ryan Nelson and Zach Gallen throw in the mid 90s. So if they're able to turn up the velocity a bit on their cutters, because they both, I think, average about 90 miles an hour on their cutter compared to about 95 on their fastball. If they're able to throw it at least close to that and it comes out of the same slot and it looks the exact same, it's going to be so freaking nasty to watch three guys come out there and just throw the nastiest cutters you've ever seen.
Good
Yeah,
luck.
it's going to be
Good luck.
great television. So again, make sure you guys get I think the D-backs TV. It's a pretty solid deal when they come out with it. Like you don't have to worry
It's
about
not
blackouts.
official.
It's not official, but
So,
they'll probably have it again because I don't think there's been any news on the TV deals. Like,
I mean, Derek Hall has said all offseason that they're working on something, but who knows?
either way, if they still have the same deal, go and get that. If not, hey, I think the ballpark pass still might be available, $2.99 for every single home game. That's 81 games. It's basically a season ticket. Like it's changes seats every time, but hey, it's like $3 a ticket to get into a game. Take advantage of that. Get in there. Shout out Shug. Shug, appreciate you. Always love seeing you around in here. And then yes, Charles. Zach Godley had like a 3-4 month insanity run, and then he fell off. And I will always not in a mean way, but
it was great falling into the Grand Canyon fall off. Like it was,
yeah. The way that he fell off the mound looked like he was falling into the Grand Canyon too. My goodness. But the last quote that we'll kind of talk about here was one of the ones that they kind of ended the press conference with. They asked Ken Kendrick about the team and like how this might I think put them into a box, how they kind of plan on spending money as a team. I know he kind of mentioned it earlier on this, breaking the budget, not being the first time, not being the last time. But this is just more about what their mindset is as a team and how they are going to go forward, spending their money. He was quoted saying, "We've always reinvested every dollar that comes in. Our ownership group is not focused on putting money in our pockets, and we have never have. And as long as I'm around, we never will. Our model is built around the revenue streams that we can create through performing well and inspiring fans to come and support us and inspiring sponsors, et cetera, et cetera. And all those, and all the money increase, we're going to reinvest." Went on to say that our fans in this community support winning teams. This part I specifically liked. Also said they don't necessarily operate here like maybe the Chicago Cubs fans. No disrespect to them, but they support their team no matter what, which seemed like kind of a shot at the D-backs fans, but also kind of a shot maybe at the Cubs, but either way. And then finished off his quote with saying, "We are going to continue to try and build revenue and reinvest that in the quality that we put on the field." So was there anything obviously that stood out to you guys? I know that it was kind of funny, the Cubs one, especially because they travel well. They've been around a while, especially in spring training, like their new ballpark and all that. There's a lot of Cubby fans here. I mean, my brother is a Cubs fan as well, just because of Jay Bell too. That's the only reason. He only liked the Cubs because I think it was either Jay Bell or Damian Easley, one of the two. I think that was traded. I'm very positive it was Jay Bell. I could be mixing up my Damians.
That even Mark
too.
Grace?
No, it wasn't Mark Grace. It was a D-back from one of the 01 teams that was traded to the Cubs. So I'm pretty sure it was Jay Bell. Again, if I'm mistaken, maybe I'll talk to my brother and he'll correct me, and I'll bring it up on the next show. But
Jay Bell never played for the Cubs.
It was oh god, it was maybe it was Damian Easley. I think it was somebody.
Jay Bell basically finished his career here. He had one. He finished in 03 with the Mets.
Then my apologies. I didn't mean to mix that up. But yeah, there was a former D-back that became a Cub. That was the reason why he became a Cubs fan. So at least he started as a D-backs fan. Oh well, but the comment about the Cubs fans and all that and how they're going to support their team no matter what. Whereas we here in Arizona, we are expecting a winner and all that. Me personally, I'm not in that. Hey, I was at so many of those games in that 2021 season where they were just absolutely dog water, where it's the fourth or fifth inning, we're down by 7 runs, and it's like, all right, let's see how many value beers I can chug before I get a ride home.
That was ugly. If you survive that, you
deserve an award. You deserve a Purple Heart.
You can appreciate 23. The fact that you were able to get through that, you can really appreciate how special 23 was.
So obviously, I know not all Diamondbacks fans are, kind of fitting in that boat that Ken Kendrick is mentioning with, D-backs fans, kind of coming here when the team's good, supporting the team is when they're good. But was there anything else, in his final quote here, or is, something that you wanted to touch on? Just what kind of stuck out to you guys with Ken's comments about, the ownership group and the way they spend money and their plan like that?
I'm calling BS. I'm calling you out, Ken, about they're not focused on putting money in their pockets. And open up those books, let us see how you spend the money and how much money you guys make every year. But they won't because they don't want to do that. And yeah, I think I mean it's true what he's saying about the fan base here. Unfortunately, like they can be very fair weathery, but again, we've talked about like this team doesn't win back to back years. Like the last time, when we look at the attendance numbers in those early years, they had like a very steady, you know, attendance every year. They're always like around top 10 in the league in attendance. They had a ton of season ticket holders during that time, and then as soon as this ownership got cheap and showed that like they didn't really care, I mean, kind of as a fan or even like you know, a casual, why would you care if this team doesn't really care? If you're like, all right, so this ticket is $25, but then parking is $20, and to buy something in the stadium, it's another $20, $30. I'm like, why would I want to pay this money if they're clearly not even trying to win? And that's unfortunately a mentality a lot of people have. And to a certain extent, I do agree with it. Like, although I wasn't a lot of those 2021 games, unfortunately, and I was at the last game when Josh Van Meter hit the home run. So we missed out on Jackson Holiday because of that. So yeah, I just do think that if this team is able to put in a consistent winner, they're going to get a lot of the fan base back and able to care about this team, because the Cardinals and the Suns sure aren't doing anything, and there's a lot of Coyotes fans looking for another sport to follow. So follow the D-backs, check us out, join the bandwagon. Chase Field is always rocking when there's way more people in there.
Yeah, saying, for you guys that were obviously there for the 2023 postseason, that's still a memory I'll always have, especially like, Alec Thomas's home run and even the four home run inning. When that place is full, obviously it is loud. It is an environment that I feel like every sports fan can love. And to me, kind of shows the difference between things like, football, hockey, basketball, where baseball is different. Baseball is its own one of one. And, it's even like Charles comment saying here that fans can be very fickle, unfortunately, and on top of the number of transplants that move here, hard to grow fans when teams are bad and people don't have reasons to go to games. That's a good point, and that's why when my son's born in May, I'm gonna raise him and be like, hey, you know what? We're not fair weather fans. You watch games. Obviously, if you can't go to games, that's a different story. Everyone's financial thing. That's not going to hold that against anybody. But if you can support your team in the good times and the bad, that means you're an actual fan. And that's what we're here to do, create the next generation of D-backs fans. So then 10, 20, 30 years from now, we have not as much of an issue with transplant fans. We have an actual diehard fan base where, like Gabe said, maybe not filling out the 44,000 seats that for some reason Chase Field has. We're at least getting more consistent growth with that. But Brandon, kind of same thing to you. Was there anything that stood out to you, with Ken's comments, maybe whether, like I said, the Cubs thing or just something in general that he said about the ownership group and the way they, kind of spend money?
I think it's very bold to come out and say that your main objective is to not make yourself money, because that's literally what he's saying, is that like their goal is to not put money in the ownership group's pocket. But I'm like, this is a business. If you're not making money, then what do you do? Like, I just thought it was funny. It kind of made me laugh. Like, yeah, Ken Kendrick's a unique individual. Like,
He's not like other owners.
he is not like you can definitely tell like he is not a people, like he doesn't interact with a lot of people that much. So like when he gives quotes to the media, sometimes it's not the like if you're a PR person, you're like, no, 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 don't like. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of their PR department that gets worried of when Ken speaks, because it's just like he doesn't think like how this will look. He's just saying because he wants to say it. So
it's the complete opposite of Mike Hazen. Mike Hazen is like going through 5-6 different checks in his head, where Ken Kendrick just has almost no filter sometimes.
Like, it was really funny on like some of the questions and some of the quotes. Like Mike Hazen was just like looking down. Like you could tell he was trying not to laugh based on what like Ken was saying. He's like, Ken, you can't say that.
Yeah, he's like, man, dial it back in a little bit, Ken. Come on, dog. Come on. But yeah, say I do think that like you said, it is a little bit funny that saying that they're not trying to make money. Maybe he's meaning it as they're not going to be on the Jeff Fisher, White Sox kind of end where their only goal isn't to make money. Where it's like, yeah, obviously they're going to like pay themselves a salary. Every owner of a business has like a salary they pay themselves, and like they do pay themselves. Obviously, like we're not going to say they don't. Like they clearly do. He has a baseball card collection for a reason. I know that's a joke, but still. But he's definitely at least not like the guys like the A's, where the second they're out of Oakland, they're actually willing to spend money because he just wanted to keep the team as poor as possible, pulling a little major league action when I forget the owner in that movie where she tried to make the team so terrible that she could move them from Cleveland. He's not on that level.
To Miami. She
Yeah,
wanted
to
move
Miami.
them.
God, what a good movie, man. Moneyball and Major League. If you guys haven't seen them in a minute, I know most of you guys probably have. If you haven't at all, you're missing out on some great baseball content.
Yeah.
Go watch that. I know Moneyball's on YouTube, but hey, don't worry. We're still on YouTube. We're still here, so don't go away just yet. But yeah, there were a few other comments obviously that we didn't touch on, but we're gonna get some graphics and we're gonna get some quotes put out in the next coming days and all that. So make sure you guys again follow us on Twitter. Make sure you guys follow us on TikTok before it gets banned in the US probably in the next few days, unless it's bought by either Elon Musk or fucking Mr. Beast. What a timeline. We're so cooked as a species. Good Lord. But again, make sure you follow us on there. Follow us on Blue Sky as well. Check out all the other things on AZ Snake Pit, like I mentioned before. And then again, as I said at the beginning of the show, we're doing back-to-back shows on back-to-back days. Tonight obviously was just about the Corbin Burns presser and all of that. But there was some news. Obviously, the D-backs were confirmed out on Roki Sasaki by John Gambadoro. There were some reports on like a mystery team, but then Jeff Passan kind of came out as well and said that the final three teams that are in the running on Roki Sasaki are the Dodgers, Padres, to no one's surprise, and then the Blue Jays, who just enjoy being cucked. They got a kink for that shit.
So
like,
there was
that's the number one thing.
Actual report that just came out in the last few minutes that the Padres and Dodgers are looking to trade with teams to get more international signing money so they can offer more.
I believe Nugget, which again, who's going to be our guest on tomorrow night's show because he's got some sources in the D-backs scouting department, I believe, and has some behind the deets info where he was giving us some news and all that on the international prospects the D-backs were bringing in before they were ever even tweeted out by any reputable in quotes, because hey, just because you're a big guy doesn't mean you have all the sources right. But he was putting out some information in there before even some of the other guys in the D-backs media outlet were doing that. So we're going to have him on tomorrow, kind of go on over some deep dive on some thoughts on each player, break down some of the contracts, break down some of the comparisons. One of the guys is compared to Corey Seager, Vietnam flashbacks, and some of the thoughts and who he likes, maybe who's more of a project, who he feels like could be a slam dunk of a signing. But again, that will be tomorrow evening. We appreciate every one of you guys for coming through. Corbin Barrels, Charles Elliott, I know coming at the end here, Talk to Tackett. Appreciate all of you guys. Jeff, Gabe, or Jeff, Oscar, Kyle, Red Sox Nation as well. We appreciate every single one of you guys. Make sure you guys, again, we're very close to 300 subscribers on YouTube as well. So if you guys haven't subscribed already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, comment, like I said in the beginning, and we will see you guys tomorrow evening for another episode of D-backs Dispatch.
It's the D-backs Dispatch. Let's go. Yeah, Red Gabe, Josh on the floor. West Coast vibes, catch us on the air. Home run dogs, diamond gems we share. Brandon was a stat, Caesar man was a plan. Red brace it down, Chelsea like it is, man. Gabs on fire, brings the heat every time. Josh on the mix, keep the beat so prime. I got the insight, 7 weeks ahead. Tune in, D-backs Dispatch, this is it. Now we roll. D-backs Dispatch, yeah. Talking Brandon Gabe, this is Big Catch. Josh on the mix, he makes a piece. West Coast vibe, got the G fucking the band. The home Mac, the home Mac, the home Mac, home Mac. D-backs Dispatch, we here to stay. Yeah, catch us every week, we bring the play by tour. We got the home Mac, the home Mac, the home Mac, home Mac. D-backs Dispatch, we here to stay. Catch us every week, we bring the play by tour.